It will be fun, but yeah, I'll be ready to be done when it's over.
I like Christmas on my own. There we go. We're live on YouTube. Let's start the recording. Whoops, where's the record gone? There it is. Record on the computer. Okay. So I was going to work on my big painting today, but I'm shattered. I don't physically or mentally have the energy to do that. So we're going to draw Rudolph. I've put him in the post. I've put him in the gallery. He's everywhere. This cute guy. How could we not draw him? I mean, come on. And what I thought, instead of doing hang on. Instead of oh, where did that come from? Stop it. I don't want that button. Instead of doing, like we've been doing like really quick sketches and things like that, we've been doing pen and ink drawings and, you know, the kind of rough and ready, get it into your book kind of drawings. And sometimes you want to take a little bit more time over it, and I appreciate that. I don't. I never feel that way. I draw for the sake of drawing, and I either draw something and spend a lot of time on it, or I draw lots of things and spend a lot of time on them. I don't differentiate, if that makes sense. I just draw. But I know some people like to do quick and rough and ready, and also work on something until it's a finished piece. So I thought what we could do today, rather than trying to do a finished piece, we could do something that is similar to what Sam does in her book. So more along the lines of what most people are aiming for, which is something like this, where you've got, it's recognizable as a zebra. Is he in proportion? Who the hell knows? Who knows what a zebra's ears look like in proportion to the rest of him? I don't know. Hey, Risha. Sorry, she's talking to me in chat. If I move that down there, I can see both chats. Ha. Nice. Okay. So for those of you in YouTube who are about to say, where do I find the picture of the reindeer? I've put it in the description below the video. Ha. Rachel, I'm looking at you. I thought it would be nice to do something like this, where we draw the reindeer and we aim to get him looking fairly decent, but not overly detailed in pencil. And then we go over him, we ink him in pen, but we do it loosely, so it's not anything too complicated. And then we do a very light bit of colour here and there with watercolour. The kind of thing that if you were doing it in your journal, you might take an hour or so over, but you wouldn't necessarily want to finish it completely and have it perfect or anything like that. Just, you know, good, as opposed to scribbly. Okay? So for the purposes of today's lesson, you will need a pencil and you will need an eraser, but we're not going to overly complicate the eraser thing. You're going to need some kind of a fine liner. You could use a ballpoint pen. You could use something like a uni pen. As long as it's waterproof, it really doesn't matter, because we're going to do a little bit of watercolor over the top. If you don't have watercolor, you can use wet pen, water-based pen, like Zig colors or Crayola or whatever. Just scribble your pen on a bit of plastic and then use a water brush to make the color like watercolor. You don't even need to add water to it or anything. You just you know. Okay. So we've got a picture of a reindeer. Where are we going to start? Anyone want to take a guess what we're going to do first? It's not a test. It's to check that those of us who are well versed in drawing are making sensible choices when they start a piece. Let's put it that way. Good practice. Good practice. What is good practice?
The head, the shape of the head.
Before that. I've moved this damn thing again.
Oh, you mean like the square?
Yes, there we go.
Okay.
See, it sounds like it's simple, and then you realize that actually you've missed out a couple of steps that are going to help you along the way. And it's only when you start drawing the head that you realize, oh, hang on a minute, I don't actually know how big I want to draw this head. And then you have to erase and start again. It's much easier to just know how big you want to draw it in the first place. So I'm going to go nice and easy. He is a square shape. He is not a square shape. His picture is a square. So I'm going to start by mapping out a square on my paper. I have a tendency, as you saw with my bunny, to go a little bit outside my squares. So I always make my squares a little bit smaller than I think I'm going to need. So I think I will need a square probably about that big.
I can't say I've ever drawn something with antlers. Do you think putting the antlers in the square, or are they going to go outside of it?
Look at the picture.
Oh.
Go on. Answer is
Outside.
Yeah.
You think? I don't know. I think it could go both ways.
I think you're thinking too far ahead.
Okay.
You're getting into fine art mode. We're not doing fine art. We're not doing composition. We don't care about composition, okay?
Okay. Well,
we're drawing something cute in our journals. So dial it back a bit.
Okay.
I'm just thinking more general term. The picture is square.
Yeah.
This bit of his antler is inside the square. So that bit of his antler is going to be inside the square.
Okay.
The rest of his antlers we can't see, so those will technically be outside the square. We can make those up, or we can draw the square so it stops at his antlers, or we can just, like this, for instance, she's just petered it out. That's what I like to do with this kind of thing, because I don't want to stop his antlers. I want him to have that feeling of you know, the whole majesty of a reindeer is that out of his head he's got these massive things that look like they're too big for his body coming out of his head, and they're huge, and we want to get that sense of enormity. So drawing a square around him is going to contain him. I don't want to do that. So in this case, I think what we'll do is we'll draw the bits that we can see that are inside the square, and then we'll kind of make up the rest, and we'll peter it out so that it's kind of like this, and it just fades off into the distance. So we get the idea that his antlers expand off into the great beyond, and therefore that gives the sense of enormity of his antlers. They were so big we couldn't fit them on the page, kind of thing. Okay.
Good plan. Yep, good plan.
So you're thinking a little too technically. It's good to think about composition, but honestly, worrying about that kind of stuff is too complex for what we're doing. that bit of his antlers are inside the square. Therefore, that's what we're going to draw inside the square. Roughly. I mean, you know, we're not going to have his head exactly the right place, exactly the right size, and so on. But that's roughly what we're going for. Can anyone tell me how to draw when you have a needy cat? Yeah, slowly, honey, slowly. Oh, Jennifer suggested his body. Sorry, Jen, I didn't see you over there. Hi, Jen. Hi, Jane. I don't know how it works for anybody else, but when I had a cat, I used to sit with him. I mean, it depends if your cat is happy to sit and curl up with you, but I used to sit with him in my non-drawing hand and let him curl up in that arm and then just use my other arm to draw. But if he's in that mode where he wants to shout at you and headbutt you, then, you know, good luck. Maybe watch the replay. Okay. So now we've got our square. Oh, let me just, I'm not measuring the square. I'm just getting a roughly, it's about a 5. So mine is about a 5-inch square. But that it doesn't really matter. It's just me saying, okay, roughly, that means my reindeer is going to end up somewhere around here. I mean, if this was me, remember, if this was me doing it myself, let me see if I can get that autofocus to work today. I bet it won't. It's going to autofocus all the time, I think. Yes, not even on the camera that's on the table. That's one of the things that's on my list to sort out while I'm moving my cameras around. If this was me, I would be skipping the pencil for a start. I don't draw in pencil. But just to get an idea of where I was drawing him on the page, I would do that. And then I'd go, okay, so his eye is a little over halfway, a little about a third of the way down. His eye's going to be about there. So his head's going to be there. His ear's going to be there. His antlers are going to be there. His body's going to be there. And off we go. You know, that's what I would do just to get the placement on the page. And then I would go in with pen. But that's not what we're doing today. We're doing it a little bit more traditionally, shall we say, for those of you who are not at that stage, because, you know, it's all very well for me to say, well, you do that. Yeah, but I've got 40 years of practice behind me. So let's do something a little more easy to do. Now, remember, we are inking this in. So this is only a sketch. Don't press too hard. You only want to get in the key lines. You really only want to get the outlines. We're not going to go in and draw the reins and everything else. We're just going to draw the main pieces. Okay. So the first thing I would do is find out where that eye is, because the photograph, the photographer has taken the photograph in such a way that it really does focus in on that eye. That he's giving you a serious case of side eye there. He's like, dude, seriously? So that eye is what we want to get in the right place. So as I said, and a simple way of doing this, if you've got a printout of your picture, is to just, I mean, my paper's slightly off, so I'm going to have to fold it a bit strangely to get it square, but just fold it in quarters if it's a square, or even if it's a rectangle, fold it in quarters, just to get an idea of where the center is, because it's easy to find the center on your square. So if this is the center of my square, here's how to find the center of a square. You ready? Corner to corner, corner to corner. There's the center of your square. It's that simple. That is dead center. Even if your square is a little bit wonky, that's dead center. So we know dead center on there. We know dead center on here. So it's in this top quadrant up here. So we know it's going to be up here somewhere. How far up that line is it? Well, I'd say his eyebrow was about halfway. So if we take this, he's got kind of a circular area here. So if we take that square that we're going to draw for the circle, the square actually almost touches this line and it's about halfway. So let's do that. Let's say, okay, his edge of his eye is going to be about here. It's about halfway between there and there, which is about there. So that's the top corner. So his eyebrow is going to go in there somewhere. So now all we need to know is how deep the square is. So from halfway, it comes down to, oh, I'd say that's about a quarter of the way, wouldn't you? Between there and there is about halfway. So between there and there, about halfway, let's say about there. See, I'm good at eyeballing it. I already drew the line, the length it needed to be. Sorry, the focus will stop going in and out when we have some colour on the page. Let me see if I can clip him there so that he... There we go, that might help it focus a bit. So, yeah, between halfway and the middle, about halfway, that's where the bottom of the square is going to be. So if we draw a square in there, and then we know how to turn that into a circle. We did that last time. Mark it in half and draw it round. Okay, so that is the circle here that is quite well marked, that's going to contain his eye. So we've effectively done the same for his eye as we've done for the rest of him. So we've drawn a square big enough for the reindeer, and now we've drawn a square that's big enough to contain his eye. All right. We'll leave it at that for now. No, I really need that reindeer over here, don't I? So I can... Let's see if we can do it that way. Is that better? Sorry, I'm trying to get the camera to stay in focus. It doesn't like focusing on a white page. There we go, that's a bit better. So the next thing we're going to do is get the head. Now that we know where the eye is, we can get the head in. So his head, again, comes in this top three corners. His chin there, can you see his chin? That actually crosses that centre line. So his chin is going to be here somewhere. We already know that. So now we know how deep that section is from there. Oh, it doesn't quite cross the line. I'm sorry. It's a little bit below it. So his chin is going to be about there. In fact, let me make this a bit easier for you guys. Because I can see what I'm doing, but you may not be able to. So make it a bit easier. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, if you've printed it different size or a different way, you may be looking at something different. Or if you're drawing the whole rectangle, your center points might be different. But that's my center points. So that center point there, his chin is just below, it comes across that corner. So let me put the lines in here as well. Again, roughly, they don't have to be perfect. So I estimate his chin is going to be about there. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to get a sense of how big he's going to be. Okay. So his nose. From there to there, his nose, I would say that was fifths. One, two, three, 4, 5, not quite. but close enough. Close enough. We can use fifths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Doesn't matter if it's not quite right. Don't worry about it. So his nose is going to be here. And that is almost a circle coming almost to that second line. So big floofy nose, almost a circle. We now know that his chin is going to continue up here like that. And this angle, now you might think, oh, let's measure where this is going to go and let's measure where this is going to go. There are easier ways to do things, okay? This angle, what's that angle? Come on, trig students, what's that angle?
It's about 45 degrees.
It's about 45 degrees. And how do we find 45 degrees on a square?
It's half of a right triangle.
It's half of a right triangle, yes. So if we draw that, we've got our parallel line for the top of his nose. Okay, that tells us the angle. His nose comes up just a tiny bit. Is actually coming from the top of that circle, the top left of that circle. So as the circle comes round, comes from the top left, it goes up like that, parallel to that line at about 45 degrees. And the flat bit of his head here, well, it's not flat, but you know what I mean. The flat bit of his head here is roughly where the edge of that square is. So if we pop that square up there, like that, we've now got where that curve here is. So we can say, okay, so his head's going to come probably about there. Now on the other side of this square, if you follow that line across the top of his head and the bottom of his eye and the top of the square, you can see where his ear is going to be. And his ear, that width there, is very roughly the same as the width of the eye. So on this side of the line, we can say, okay, so we're going to come up across like here. That's going to be the back of the ear. It's this line here. The top of his head cuts about 3/4 of his ear off, 1/3 of his ear off, and the top of that line cuts another another third of his ear off. So that line across there, and that line across there, we now know that his ear, this is about 1/3. It's a little bit off, mine's a little bit off, so his ear is going to be about here somewhere. It really doesn't matter if his ear is too big or too small or whatever. First of all, you can adjust it before you ink it. And second, who knows how big a reindeer's ears are anyway? I would have thought a reindeer had pointed ears, but apparently reindeers have round ears like bears. I would have thought they'd have pointy ears like deer. Deer have pointy ears, don't they? Stags have pointy ears. Apparently reindeer have round ears. We're starting to get a bit of our reindeer coming in, look. So we can add in, we can do a bit of poetic license and say, okay, his ear is going to be about here. He's got an antler coming right out there, right above his head. So we can put that in. We can say that his antlers are going to come from here. So there's that angle. So it comes up in a sweep. So from there it goes up in a sweep. And it's parallel, so up in a sweep. And then we've got another one behind it that comes in here. So I'm going to say about there where the round of his head comes, up and a sweep, up and a sweep. So we've got that one at the back. I think the key point of this is that this antler is at the same angle of as his face. So let's draw it on the other side, about there. We've already got our angle. So let's say that's the bottom of that bit of antler. Let me do it that way so it's a bit easier to see. There you go. So if that's that bottom bit of antler there, it connects across here, just above here. So there's that bit. It comes down just below his eyebrow, so about there. And then we can make up the rest. It kind of goes like that. And it's got a big loopy bit at the top there. And then this bit comes, oh, okay, hang on. That is that bit there, and then that bit's behind. So actually what we want to do is join that bit to there. And then this bit comes up behind it from the other antler. See, that's the kind of thing you have to look out for. So now we've got his front antler and his back antler. And then this one kind of meets this one, kind of like that. That's close enough. So there's his antlers. We've drawn some of them in the square, some of them outside the square, and we'll fade them out. This strap here is a good pointer. We call this a drop line or a plumb line. It's halfway across that square. So that's a good pointer for telling you where this is. That his knee is right below that. So that's the kind of indicators you're looking for. So right in the middle of this and just below his ear. So if that's his ear and it's going to be kind of, I think maybe my ear's a little bit big. So I'll adjust that and I'll put the shadow in underneath there. So right across from that shadow and about halfway across the square is that little bit of buckle. So right below that buckle, that's where his knee's going to be. Don't know how big his knee's going to be yet, but, you know, put it in roughly. And his harness comes about halfway across. So about here is where his harness is going to end. His front, although he's very fluffy, his front basically comes down like that. And he's got kind of a shadow area here where it's just fluff. So I'm going to go with that, and it's level with the outside of his eye. So, okay, the center of his eye is there in that square. That edge of his eye is about halfway. So that is the same line that is roughly this line here. See, line things up and it becomes much easier. So now that we know his eye is that size and going that way, it's literally like a cat shape. We can actually put his eye in there. So it's going to start, it's basically going to be that kind of shape. And then he has an angle down there, very roughly. You know, we can fiddle with it when we line it in, but very roughly, that's how big his eye is going to be. Now he's starting to take shape. I'm going to pause there for a second while anybody who needs to catch up catches up. I know not everybody works as fast as I do. But I don't want you to get hung up on, oh, but I haven't got this in the right place. That's why I like to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and making you go faster. Because if you're trying to keep up with me, you're not really worrying about what you're doing. You're just trying to follow the instructions. Anybody want to share so far? How are you getting on? Andrea? Turn him to the left, 90 degrees. He's upside down to me. Oh, there we go. Looking good. I think his nose is not quite big enough. And I think his antlers are not quite big enough. I think you've drawn his nose a little bit too small. If you look at the size of his eye there, like the actual eye that you've drawn is almost the same size as the actual nose you've drawn, which is about there. This circle around the eye is much bigger, and the nose is bigger again. So I think you want to make your nose like twice as big. They have big floofy noses. And I think that's what's thrown it off at the top, because you're trying to squish the antlers in. If you'd done a slightly bigger nose, you wouldn't be trying to squish the antlers in. You'd be going, oh, yeah, it goes all the way out here. Okay, so make your nose a bit bigger and then remap your antlers from there. Don't worry about trying to keep your antlers inside here and drawing exactly this amount of antler inside the square. I haven't drawn exactly that amount of antler inside the square. The square is only a guide. They're not there to be, we're not doing strictly 9 by 9 following each square. If we were, we wouldn't be doing it like this. So give him a nice big floofy nose and then redraw your antlers in proportion to that. Cody's doing a journaling. Let's have a look at yours, Risha. How are you doing? Very good. Very good. You also haven't drawn a very big floofy nose. However, you have got it in proportion. Somehow you've managed to get this end of his face in proportion without doing his nose big enough. That's very clever. His nose actually needs to be a bit floofier. You've kind of drawn this bit of his nose here, which if you're drawing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that's great. Oh, sorry. You've drawn that bit of his nose. Mm-hmm. And obviously you need to make it a little bit bigger. So from where you've drawn your nose, you see all the white?
Yeah.
That's how big your nose needs to be. So twice as wide, but from the same point here. So the same point here, from that same bit of circle, but twice as wide. So this becomes his nose. Okay?
Yeah.
But just sketch it in. Don't change it. Don't delete what you've already, no, don't erase what you've already done. Just sketch in a bigger circle around it. Because what you've got is actually the right size for where you want his nostrils to be.
Okay.
Otherwise, very good. Ashley, let's have a look at yours. Getting too detailed. Getting far too detailed, far too quickly.
Sorry.
Whoa. Ashleception. Ooh, that was weird. Oh, it's still happening.
Whoa.
Okay, unmute yourself when you get it sorted. Crikey. It's because you've got sound on twice. I think she's frozen up now. Pretty tablecloth. There's cute little birds and moons and spiders and bats. Oh my God, that's awesome. And skulls and all sorts. Oh, I love that. No, I think we've lost Ashley. Oh, she's back. Is it safe to unmute you now? Yeah,
No.
far too detailed, far too quickly. You've gone into art school mode. It's very good. It's excellent, but you're getting far too detailed, far too quickly for what we're doing. Okay. I've got my finger on the mute button now for her. Okay. I think she's sorting it out.
I turned it off.
Okay. Yeah. You're going into, I know how to draw animals, therefore I'm going to go and draw what I see, which is good. There's nothing wrong with it, and your reindeer is excellent. And if that's what you're comfortable with doing, carry on ahead and do what you think is right, because you are good at drawing already, but you're not following the class. So if your aim is to follow the class, you just failed. Sorry. If your aim is to just do the reindeer, then you're doing very well. He's lovely. If you're trying to follow the class, you're not following the class at all.
Well, I was following your direction, but
well, I haven't even mentioned his bridle yet. That's the first time I've mentioned his bridle. You've already drawn it. So yeah, you failed there. Sorry. However, you could, because you've gone so far so fast, I would say start again, keep him, finish him off in your own style, start again with the simpler version, because you could catch up this in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And finish him off at your leisure in your style, but follow the class to simplify it, if that makes sense. Because while you can draw very well, and you draw like I do, you also have a tendency to go far too detailed and then not be able to correct mistakes. I do it too, so I know the pain and misery of doing that. What I should do is this. What I actually do is go in with ballpoint pen and say, oh, who cares? Which is what I like to do. And if you like the way you draw, then that's fine too. But if you wanted to follow the class, then you're not following the class. Might as well tell you now. Grab another piece of paper and catch up.
I'm on it.
I'm saying that because I know the other day you said the whole purpose of doing it was to change the way you do things and to switch it up and get out of that professional mode. So, you know, you've gone into professional mode, snap out of it.
Starting over.
Yeah. So this is all we've got at the moment. The basic head. And, you know, Ashley, you don't have to do every single bit of this measuring. You're very good at estimating it already. So if you're quite happy to just go in and say, okay, well, I think his nose is about here and his eye is about here, then go ahead and do that. Shortcut those bits. These bits are for beginners. The measuring and stuff is for beginners. You've just got way too much detail in there for what we're doing. Oh, this thing is getting in my way. Okay. There we go. So the next thing we've got to do is his body. Let's get his body shape in. Now his body is hefty, so we want him to look weighty. We already know that this is the front side of his body. We already know that that's his knee there. And I'd say, let's see, his knee width versus his actual nose width, not the nose width some of you have drawn. His actual white nose bit and his knee, I would say those are roughly the same width. So about that wide, mine's a little bit small, so I'm going to make his knee a little bit bigger. And then all his floofy bits are here. So that's all floof. And yes, I just drew that in as that's all floof, big scribble. He's also got another knee here, which is hard to see. You don't necessarily notice it. And it kind of finishes that triangle off. So if we take that triangle from about there and across there, that's about where his knee is. So let's draw a nice big knee in there. Because he's sat with his feet kind of like that under him. So you're not just seeing his knee like you are here, you're seeing the whole side of his leg. This is his hoof here somewhere. But again, we're going to simplify that. We don't need to draw all this technical stuff to make him look like a reindeer. So I'd say his knee is about there. His back, we've got a slope here. Look at that. And guess what? What's that angle? Oh, it's like pulling teeth. Come on, people. What's that angle?
45.
45 degrees. There we go. So it starts in the middle of his ear and it goes off into the distance. So we already know that if we draw corner to corner on the triangle, on the square, sorry, that's 45 degrees. So there's the bit of his ear. It's going to, actually, that is roughly the line. That is roughly the line. It does roughly come right the way down there. So just draw a diagonal line across your square from his ear down. Now, my reindeer's head is quite large compared to this. I think my reindeer is going to be a bit fatter and he's probably going to go outside the lines a little bit. That's perfectly okay. So let's see. On this, the widest part of him is about there. It's on that floofy bit here, just above his leg. So just above his leg to the edge of his body. Let's see, how big is that? It's almost as big as from his nose to the back of his ear, very roughly. I say very roughly because all of this is hair. He's probably actually not that big. But visually, it's about the same width. So if we get it about the same width, we should be all right. So about that width, about that width. So as suspected, my reindeer is going to come outside the square to about here. And now I've put that in, and it's going to be a curve. He's a curve there. It's almost a complete semicircle. Look, it's almost an entire semicircle. So, do we know how to draw semicircles? Hell no. So we'll draw like a rectangle, and we'll smooth it out that way. There we go. Oops, got carried away there. Don't do it like that. Here's his angle for his neck. And this is like a semicircle. So like that. Very roughly, he's going to be that kind of shape. And obviously animals are not straight lines, so it doesn't matter. We're going to ink him in a minute anyway. Now we can see where his harness is going to go, because it goes in a curve It goes almost straight and then it curves that way. So it's a shallow curve and then deep curve. So from that buckle, a shallow curve and a deep curve. And we already know where it's going to finish because we already marked it off. It's going to finish over there. And then it comes around, it gets a little bit wider there, and it gets a little bit thinner towards the top. His bridle is roughly in between his eye and his floofy nose. And it follows the curve of his head, look. See that curve there and that curve there, almost identical. So if his head is curved about there, his bridle is going to be about there. And it comes down under his chin because they don't have tight bridles on their noses. Then he's got a bit that's almost horizontal and a bit that comes down from behind his neck round into his floof. And that is as much of the bridle as you need to do right now. There's a ring there and there's a kind of a square. Oh, it's a square ring, but I don't care. I'm going to draw it as a circular ring because I'm lazy. So there's his bridle. That's as much as you need to draw. Ashley, I'm looking at you. Everything else is fluff. Everything else is fluff. We do not need to draw whatever this is here. We do not need to draw whatever all this is here, all these blue ropes and things. I mean, we can, but we don't have to. In fact, I would probably simplify the whole thing, turn this into, again, do a circle for the reins. It doesn't matter. Do a little connector, do a circle for the reins, and then maybe do a blue rope off there somewhere. Instead of having all this blue rope everywhere, just have one going off that way. He's got his cowbell there. Let's put that in. So his cowbell is going into his floof. So here's his chin. Here's his floofy bit. So his cowbell, let's say his cowbell is going to be about there. Just draw a triangle for the cowbell. Again, we can draw it in with pen. Up here, we've got his head. That's okay. We've got his back. It's got his buckle there. That's okay. We've got a little bit more fluff where we can see his bum and a little strap there. So we'll put that in. There's stuff going on down here. We don't need that. I think that'll do. So if your reindeer looks something like that, you're about right. Oh, Jane says it's the ears are because of the cold weather. His ears are shorter and thicker. Useless information, I know. No, it's interesting, Jane. That ties in with moose because moose have very short, stubby ears too, don't they? They don't have big, pointy ears. They have very short, stubby, furry ears. I suppose he is kind of almost closer to a moose than a reindeer. I think they're all the same family, aren't they? Elk. He is kind of like a miniature moose rather than a big reindeer. I was watching a video the other day. Oh my God. The Canadians in the group won't be surprised, but have you seen the size of a flipping moose? Like, Oh my God. There was this video on YouTube. Was it YouTube or was it on the news thing? There's this moose casually walking down the middle of the road, right? And of course, most people in Canada, purely because of the weather, have four-wheel drives. So they're all driving like trucks and SUVs and stuff. And this moose is like 3 times the size of your average SUV. I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I've always thought, you know, where I come from, we get a lot of deer. It's common to hit a deer because you don't see them. And 9 times out of 10, they're quite spindly and they're quite small. So you just scoop them up and take them to the nearest vet, and the vet will sort them out and they'll be fine. And then people talk about, you know, this truck hit a moose and went off the road. And I'm like, and the moose just got up and walked away. And you're like, what is it made of? Like tank material? Well, now I know. It's the size of a truck. It was crazy. It literally, visually looking at it, you could see like there was an SUV there. If you picture like the big black FBI type SUVs from Criminal Minds, and there was a pickup truck here. And this moose, I'm not kidding you, his body was like this. He was the size of the SUV, and his legs were down here. And these people were staring up at it like, oh my God, look at the size of that thing. And he's just casually walking up the road, going for a little saunter, not a care in the world, not worried about the traffic or anything. He's like, I'm bigger than any of you. Get out my way. Oh my God, I didn't realise moose were so big because I've never seen one. Well, I probably have, but probably in zoos and stuff, and they don't get very big in zoos, do they? But yeah, he was massive. Now I know why people's trucks go off the road when they hit a moose. Okay, anybody want to share before we go in with a pen? Let's have a look. Risha, let's have a look at yours. So if you change that nose, that's better. Yes. See how his head looks more in proportion now?
Yeah.
Good. When you ink him in, you're going to need to do his floofy bits. Mm-hmm. So be aware of that you have a tendency, as a beginner, obviously, you have a tendency to draw in continuous lines, which is good for that kind of stuff where you're laying in sketch lines. But be aware of that when you come to do pen lines. You don't actually need to do that. Sometimes you can just suggest a line, and that's enough to give a visual representation. Okay, so just be aware of that, because if you do continual lines in pen, like you're doing in pencil, you'll end up with kind of a cartoony look, which is okay if that's what you want. And it can look really cute. And in pencil, it looks great. He's really good as a basic sketch. He's very in proportion. I like it. But I think when you're going in pen, you just want to be a little bit looser with it, be a little bit more adventurous with it. In fact, I would say if you've got a scanner, scan him or take a photo of him as he is now, so that should you want to go back and redo him again later, you've got one you can print out then.
Okay.
And redo him.
Yeah.
It's very good. Well done. Andrea, how are you getting on there? She's got the eraser out. Never a good sign. He's good. He's very you. You've got a very definite style, you know, Andrea. Anybody else has noticed that? Andrea has a very, very definite style. It kind of reminds me, you know, when you see the Sinterklaas pictures. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of style. Like all of your animals look very slightly like they're about to kick off. It's very cool, actually. I like it.
My animals look like they're on death's door.
No, they all look. Cody's animals all look like they're hungry. But no, yours all have this kind of very slightly menacing look.
Oh,
It's almost like Tim Burton-ish.
I grew up on a farm. Animals did often come after me.
Yeah, so you've got the experience of having a very large cow coming after you.
Yeah.
Right. It's cool though. I like the fact that you've got this really unique style. You are getting a bit too detailed.
Oh,
You're getting, like Ashley, you're getting very gung-ho with the whole, ooh, let's draw it in pencil. Let's do a drawing. What we're doing is a sketch for an Inkitt drawing, which is different. That's not to say your reindeer isn't absolutely awesome. I think he's fabulous. But you're starting to get into all the nitty-gritty of drawing bits and pieces and finessing, and you don't need to do that because we're going to do that with pen.
okay.
So save your efforts because we're going to do that with pen, and you're advanced enough to be able to do that freehand anyway. So hold off until we get to the pen bit, which we're going to do in a minute.
Okay.
In fact, I would say you might want to just get the flat of your eraser so that it's less distracting, and just kind of do that just to take out the heavy bits so that it will be easier to see what you're inking. Otherwise, you'll fall into the trap like Risha. At the other end of the scale, you'll try to follow your lines. And we don't necessarily want that. But also, take a photo of him or scan him now so that if you want to come back to him, you can finish him off. You can reprint him. Okay. Ashley? Oh, Ashley's got hers there. Hang on. Have a look. We're looking a lot less detailed, Ashley. That's good. Much better. Much better. Yeah, you're almost caught up with this now, aren't you? Just pop in where the bridle and antlers are going to be and you're with us. Yeah, that's all you really need for a pen drawing. Ashley's now actually gone a little bit too far the other way. She's not got enough detail. But she'll be all right. She's getting there. Just a few extra bits and pieces for your guidelines for his harness and stuff, and you'll be at this stage. Cool. Nice pullback. Nice save, as they say. Nice save. Cody, you're still journaling, are you? You're not doing the class? You like to watch the class and then do it later, don't you? Okay. So the only thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to erase any lines that are going to be confusing. Now, for me, there aren't that many. But I want to clean up this area here. So I know that that is 3 sections. I want to clean up the bottom of his ear here because that's a bit of a mess. And I'm going to draw in his bottom of his head coming round and down like that. I'm going to get rid of that diagonal guideline there because that could get confusing with his nose. I might accidentally draw it in. I'm going to get rid of that one there so I don't accidentally go off the top of his head. And I think that'll do it. Let's clear up his eye area a little bit and just get rid of anything that's not the circle in the eye so that I've got a bit better visual. Okay, so we don't need to remove all the pencil lines. Okay, you can draw the pen, do the pen stuff, work out how much of the pen you need to put in. That's where Ashley needs to pay, Risha needs to pay attention. How much of the pen to put in, how much of the pencil to reproduce. Because remember, your pen might look very sketchy, but you're going to go in with watercolour. And if you look at the lines on this, they are literally outlines. And then everything else is watercolour. So that's what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for full colour, all the bells and whistles. Okay, I'm going to use I haven't got my 0.3, which is my favourite, but I'm going to go with my 0.2. Depending on how heavy-handed you are, a 0.2 or a 0.3 fine liner will normally be about right. If I was doing him in ballpoint pen, if I was only drawing him in ballpoint pen, I would draw him in regular ballpoint pen. If I was drawing him in ballpoint pen to watercolor him, I would use a fine ballpoint pen, the orange one. So you want a thinnish pen, thinner than you would normally write with, unless you're like me and you'd normally write with a needle tip. So somewhere around a 0.2, a 0.1. If you're very heavy-handed, you might even want to go for a 0.5, a 0.05. If you have a tendency to overdo it. Andrea, you might want to consider a thinner pen than normal.
Okay.
Because we're aiming to do the detail in the watercolor rather than in the pen. So that'll get you out of that trench of always doing very hard lines, I think.
Okay, I got it.
I love the Reindeer. I think he's awesome. He looks like he's about to kick the bejesus out of somebody. But
I don't get real sentimental about animals. They usually do kick the bejesus out of somebody.
It's like that, you know, those God creation jokes. I love them. They're so funny. There's one that's like, okay, so the deer were a big hit. How about we try something else? Let's call this one a kangaroo. What have we got? And Angel One says, what if it had a pouch on its belly that it could carry its baby in? And God goes, okay, Sharon, it's kind of weak, but it's unusual. We'll go with it. Angel 2 says, how about if it could kick his shit out of you as well? And God goes, there it is.
Yes. Yes.
I just love those. I think they're so funny because I can just kind of imagine those kind of conversations going on. Hi. And then there's one about a platypus you should look up because God gets drunk, or rather Gabriel gets God drunk and they start using up the pile of scraps, and that's how the platypus came to be.
Oh.
And there's this bit where he's like, oh my God, I've got a bill. Let's give it a duck bill. Ah! Hi. Hiya, Woo. Okay. All right. So, when inking in an animal like this, what do you think you would start with? It's not a trick question. I'm interested to see where your line of thought goes in relation to inking. Specifically inking, not drawing, not, you know, we've already got the shape. We know what we're doing. You're now going to ink it in. What are you going to start with?
I'd start with the bridge of his nose, like the top of his head down.
Okay. Anyone else?
I tend to start at the center, so I would start with the things that are closest to the center of the drawing and work my way out.
So like here and move outwards.
Yeah, kind of on that bridle, and then I'd go from that to the 2 rings.
Okay.
But that's me. I'm an inside out.
No, it's fine. There's no right or wrong answer to this. There are no right or wrong answers. There's only this is slightly easier. Risha, what do you think? As a beginner, where would you start when you're going into ink it? What would you naturally start to do first?
I think I would do actually the exact opposite. I would start with the outside and work in.
Okay.
So that I have like the, how do you call it?
Outline?
Yeah, the big outline of the animal.
Yeah. As a beginner, that would be a very good thing to do. We're actually going to do it differently because I'm specifically teaching you an inking technique. But for future reference, when you're just doing it on your own and you're just drawing, that is an excellent practice. You can get, with both Andrea's and Ashley's technique, there's nothing wrong with it. If it works for them, it works for them. And they're both advanced drawers. They're kind of entrenched in what they do. It's obviously working for them. So, you know, it's not about changing how people draw. But as you can see from both of their drawings, they get too detailed too quickly. And I know from experience, I do the same thing. You start here and you think, oh, I'll just draw this bit, and then I'll draw this bit, and then and this comes down here. Oh, there's a bit of stitching there. And all of a sudden, you're drawing the best bridle in the world, and you've forgotten about the rest of the reindeer. It's the same principle as, and I don't understand how people do this, when you draw a face, and they start with one eye, and they do this eye in perfect detail, and then they go and start the other eye. And I'm like, how the hell do you make the other eye match once you've done that? Some people can do it. And I have no idea how. It's like voodoo or something. I don't know. But I was always taught that you draw both eyes at the same time to keep everything even.
Yes.
So you don't focus on one particular part of the drawing. So your idea, Risha, of starting on the outside, getting the outline of the reindeer and the bits, and then going back in is good. It's good practice for drawing. Andrea will end up getting the best bridle in the world and probably forgetting the rest of the reindeer, or spending too much time on the bridle and then rushing the reindeer, and the reindeer won't be quite as good. And Ashley, although she does tend to work very evenly across her picture, I've seen her pictures, she does work evenly. She runs the risk of starting at the top and running out of steam as she comes down. So this bit will be very detailed, and it'll gradually fade out as it gets to the bottom. That works with style, and there's nothing wrong with it. And in fact, if you look at the photo, he kind of is, it's all up here, and then he fades out as he comes down. But then, in an attempt to put in details, what will happen is you'll end up trying to go, oh, hang on a minute, he's got a bit of rope here, and he's got a harness here. And then those bits will be very detailed against something that's got no detail at all, and it'll look inconsistent. Now, Jane draws some superb animals. Her suggestion is start with the eye. As an animal artist and someone who loves drawing animals, I can tell you, if I was drawing this just for myself, going in with ink now, that's where I would start. I would start with the eye, because if you get the eye right, you get the animal's character. However, that is really bad practice for inking. What you've got to think about when you're inking is that you can't erase. So you don't want to draw anything that's going to be behind something else. So what you want to do actually is start at the front layer and work back into the depth of the picture. So what is the closest thing to you is the ropes and his bridle, because that is on top of his fur. If you draw his head, you're going to end up with bits of his head showing through his bridle. Then you have to colour in his bridle darker than you might want it to be. So you need to start at the front. And at the very front of this picture is that rope. I didn't draw that rope in, but let's do it. It's about there, and it goes swoop like that. That actually balances out the picture, because we've got a swoop there and we've got a swoop there. So that rope is going to be on top of everything else. So that rope is what we draw first. Ooh, they all go. I never thought of that. You've got to remember, when you're inking, you can't erase. So I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm going to do just a line and a line, whoops, like that. So that is my rope. I'm going to fill in a little bit just up here just to make it look a little bit more like what it's supposed to be. Again, I'm not getting too detailed. That is actually too detailed for what we're doing. So if you're getting more detailed than that, stop. Now there's lots of rope and knots and all sorts of things here, and I don't bother with that, just because this whole line is going to be bright blue. So we don't need to do anything else to it. We don't need to put any detail in, nothing. It's going to be there. It's going to be bright blue. It's going to work. And since we're doing the blue ropes, let's do the other one on the other side. Make sure it's roughly the same kind of thing. If we draw two things together, they're more likely to be consistent than if we draw that one now and that one later. So let's get those ropes in about there. And even with my fine liner, I'm not pressing hard. I could get a line like this out of it. And I'm getting this line, because we want to do the detail in colour. Really what we're aiming for is an outline, not a lot of detail. So the next thing that's on top of something is the back end of this harness here. The back side is on top of his fur. Now the front side, his fur is on top of it. So be careful there. Don't just automatically draw both sides of the harness straight away. Sorry, I've dropped my head down too far again. There you go. Sorry about that. Don't just automatically say, oh, well, this harness is on top of his fur, therefore I'm going to draw it next. This edge is on top of the fur. This edge is not. So be aware of that. So I'm going to draw, I'm simplifying the harness. So I'm just going to draw it round like that and down. And then this buckle comes over the harness. So I'm going to leave a break there, and I'm going to come around like this and up and go under the rope and up to where it meets his fur. My pen's suddenly decided to start working properly. I don't like working with fine liners. This is why I like ballpoint pens, because they don't let you down. In fact, I'm going to switch to my ballpoint pen because I prefer working in ballpoint pen. I get a more consistent line with ballpoint pen. Okay, so we've got this strap that we didn't draw in. So let's just sketch that in. It's going to be about there. So it comes out from there. It's got a buckle. And it goes on out there like that. I can't draw that way. I always end up with a wobbly line. Again, we don't have to put a load of detail in. A little bit of detail to show that it's a buckle, and a little bit of detail to show that it's the end of a strap, and that is more than enough. This bit of strap here is on top of his fur, so that bit of strap can come round like that, but this bit of strap has fur on top of it because it's coming out over the top. What else is on top? The bridles. Now the bridles, it would be tempting to go in and draw the rings first, right? You know where the rings are, you draw the bridles to it. But again, if you do that, you're going to end up drawing the bridles too dark to cover up the fact that you've drawn the rings in. So actually, you want to draw the straps first. Again, we've got a strap that goes up and then it's covered with fur. So this strap is only going to be a very short area. and then it goes up quite a lot further on that side. So there's the strap there. Don't worry about how far it goes exactly. We'll deal with that in a second. Then we've got this bit of strap coming across here, and again, it's a proper rectangle. We've got this bit coming down here, which kind of overlaps with that bit almost, and comes down. It actually is covered by the rope at the bottom. So it's kind of curved, and it goes a bit like that. In the picture, you can see other bits of it coming out the other side and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about that. It's not necessary. Too detailed. Another bit of harness. Now, we have to think about the mechanics of this harness. It's actually got, the harness goes down and it's got a flat ring that allows it to hook to a big ring. So that's kind of got a ring through it there. It's kind of flattish. And then that hooks to the hook kind of goes down through that bit. It's hard to explain, but hopefully you can see what I mean there. And then we've got the ring coming out. And now we've got the ring. You can't see. See, I've done exactly what I told you not to do. I've done that bit there, but this is silver. So we'll just do it with like silver gel pen. We'll make it metallic. Nobody will know. Learn from my mistakes. There's a bolt that comes down here and links these two together. And this ring goes through that ring there. Like that. That means we can join that ring down there a bit better. Don't worry about whether the rings are lying on each other or defying the laws of physics. It really doesn't matter. People are not going to look that closely at it. They're going to look at it and go, oh, look, it's a reindeer. They're not going to be looking at it and going, well, that's not the right piece of tack. Well, you might get a few horse riders who might do that. That bridle doesn't look very realistic. No, well, it's not supposed to look very realistic. Does the reindeer look realistic? Okay. So let's get this last bit of bridle in. Oh, actually, we can do this bit. We can do this bit here. So join the corners. And there's your ring. See, now you could leave the bridle completely empty, or you could do it this really light tan in watercolor, and you won't be able to see the lines because you haven't drawn them. Okay, that's the key to making it look just that little bit more polished than, oh, I scribbled it down in pen in 5 minutes. Let's do his top nose here. So his nose, it's flat and it comes down to there. And it's flat and it comes down to there, like that. So now we can join these corners to make that ring. Fill in this bit to where it needs to be. Fill in that bit, okay. Now, while we're on a roll with our inking, his antlers are also very smooth. They're not in front of anything, but they are very smooth lines. And we've been practicing our smooth lines. So let's get straight in there and draw these antlers while we're on a roll. Don't think about it too much. You're not trying to overthink and follow your lines exactly. Just get the gesture. It goes up and it sweeps down. Goes up and it sweeps down like that. Go for it. Don't just, oh, but what if I get it in the wrong place? It doesn't matter. Don't be a slave to your lines. Do what you think is right. Don't make his antlers pointed at the end. Bring your lines so they almost go together and then taper them off with a little curve and it'll look better. Don't try and make your lines meet. Don't worry about it where it meets his head. We'll figure that out in a minute. This one is going up, across and down. This bit comes up and it's got a kink in it and it comes down. And then finesse out your corners because they're not sharp points. They only look like sharp points because you imagine being speared by them. Or Andrea does anyway. So same with this one. I'm going to bring it down, swoop it round, and then that's actually got a notch out of it there. So it's like a broken bit. I really like the feel of this loop. So I'm going to do this loop and I'll work the antlers around it. I just really like the way it sits there like that. So he's got a bit of antler that's coming down here. He's got a little bit of antler coming down here. And I'm just going to start petering it out so that you can't really see what's happening. Let's just have a couple of bits here. And then this bit here we're starting on. So this bit I've kind of just faded it out. We don't need to see the exact structure of every single bit of his antlers. We've got the shape. And then this bit's coming back down, nice and strong, meets that bit, and then it goes up parallel to this bit, so up and swoop. See how we've got the for want of a better word, gravitas of his antlers now. They really look like they're heavy on his head. They are his heavy crown of wow. A heavy crown of wow. There you go. That's what we're calling reindeer antlers from now on. A heavy crown of wow. So what we can do now is fill in the antlers behind. So we've got, it's kind of hard to see. This one, I think this one actually has a spur there, but I can't really see what it's doing. So I'm going to count it as part of the antler behind. We've got a bit behind here, like that. And we've got this bit coming up at the back, goes up and swooshes up. And then it goes up, and it's actually got a spur on the back there. It kind of goes that way. And I'm not even going to bother joining those lines up because that looks like maybe there's a bit more antler over there. But it makes it look like he's got two antlers instead of one. His head's there. So the next thing that is on top of something, we've got his fur that goes on top of his harness, and we've got his ear that goes on top of his fur. So let's get his ear in. So rather than being a slave to, oh, I'm going to follow my line, this is what I was talking about, Risha. We're not going to follow the line of the pencil. We want it to look organic. So we're going to use the guide, but we're going to draw what we see there. So there's his ear. And I'm looking at the picture more than I'm looking at what I'm drawing. So he's got a big black patch there. And his ear comes up, and he's got a big chunk out of his ear there. And it comes down, and it's wiggly, and then it curls back up. And now we've got an ear that looks like it actually belongs on a reindeer. I'm going to put in the edge where the black line is, so that I know where to find that later. Don't be a slave to following straight lines or anything. marking areas of shadow as you see them. And then his head comes up behind his ear like that. Don't worry about how floofy his head is and all that kind of stuff. Just put a line there and be done with it. Now we've got a big area of shading here. So I'm just going to put in a few lines to indicate that there's a shadow there. And we'll deal with that with paint. We haven't put in his black collar where his cowbell is hanging. So let's put that in. I missed that. I don't know how I missed it. It's like the biggest, darkest thing on the page. But he does have a collar that comes up like that and disappears up into his fur. And it is on top of his fur most of the way down. There's a little bit here that's got fur on top of it. And then his cowbell is here, but you can only really see one side of the cowbell and then it turns into floof. So we're going to draw his collar in. This bit of his collar is covered with floof. And that disappears up into floof. Technical term. And then this is the corner of his bell, man-made object, so that will be a straight, flat line. And we could put in maybe just evening up that line. Maybe put in the corner of it there so that it shows that it's a solid object. Now it's going to be hard to tell what that is. So I'm going to do a little bit of poetic license. I'm going to give it a round bit at the top. I'm going to put a clanger underneath so that we can all see that that's a bell. Again, I'm only drawing one side of it. This is going to be floof. But now we can see it's a bell. On here, it's obvious it's a big old brass cowbell. But on a drawing, it's just a rectangle. So just by putting in that little bit of detail there with the clanger, it shows it's a bell. Just heard from the hotel that they cancelled our booking for New Year. What? Have you paid a deposit for it? They can't do that if you've paid a deposit, can they? That's terrible. How dare they? That's Rachel. She's going to see the Nutcracker for New Year, I think she said. Something like that. Yeah, the ballet. They're going to the ballet. That's disgusting. How can they do that? I'd be mad. Okay. Next bit. The next bit that is obvious to see is this buckle. So let's draw the buckle. I'm going to draw the outside of the buckle where it is on one side. It goes over the harness and comes down. And then this bit is lost in floof. So this floofy bit is going to come all the way down there over the harness. It's going to make it look a little bit more realistic, even though we're not really going for realism. Draw the buckle. Again, the buckle is on top of the strap. So by drawing the buckle first, you can then draw the strap underneath, and you don't have lines coming through. Getting in the way. So it's obvious it's a buckle then. So we're going to draw fur. This is going to be interesting, okay? They said they cancelled as the only room now available is on the 3rd floor, and if the lift breaks down, mum will be stuffed. Well, that's fair enough, but they should have booked you in a ground floor room in the first place. They should have booked her into a disabled room in the first place on the ground floor. You can't just book other people in and go, oh, well, yeah, you can have the disabled room instead. They're not allowed to do that.
Absolutely. In the United States, they would be required to find her a disabled, accessible room, even if it was in another hotel.
Yeah, exactly. What's probably happened is they've had a big coach tour join in who want 50 rooms, and they've booked all the rooms, and they've got this one person who needs a ground floor room. So they've said, oh, well, we'll move them then. We'll lose that booking, because they don't care about 2 people when they can have 60. I bet that's what's happened. And the only other room available is on the 3rd floor. They were going to move you to accommodate the coach trip or something. Yeah, they should be required to find you another room. That's disgusting. Who's it with? Is it like a little hotel or a chain? Okay. We're going to do the fur. Inking for inking, as in doing an ink pen drawing, is not the same as inking for doing a watercolour. Because the idea with the watercolour is that you do the watercolour is the detail. Okay? So all we want to do with the fur is indicate this is furry bits. Because the fact that we're going to do this in different colours is going to indicate this is fur and this is harness. It's going to make it obvious. So don't at this stage think, oh, I have to make it obvious that that's fur and that's harness. All you have to do is mark where the edges are going to be. The shop cancelled my grocery order for Christmas today, so now I have to go grocery shopping on the biggest weekend ever. Oh my God! What is wrong with these people? What's happened to customer service these days?
Did they not know it was Christmas coming?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Did they not know it was Christmas this week? I mean, you know, we all woke up this morning and went, holy shit, it's 4 days to Christmas. But, you know, you would expect retail to at least have an idea that Christmas is at the weekend. That's ridiculous. I would be mad. I would be on to head office at this point. And I'm sorry, but, you know, I had this booked. Get on it. I mean, it's one thing if they say, well, we've got your order, but unfortunately we haven't got enough turkeys coming in, so you're going to miss out on a turkey. Okay, that gives you a couple of days to find a turkey from somewhere else. Fair enough. But what about the rest of the order? You know? Oh, no, I would be mad. I mean, my dog food is normally delivered around about the 3rd to the 5th. They've already emailed me to say that because of Christmas deliveries and post-Christmas deliveries, it might be a day or 2 late, but it is guaranteed to be with me by the 6th because it is a pre-order. So they will have it to me by the 6th. It just might be a little bit late. So they're covering their asses, basically. It'll probably be here on the 3rd. 4th at the latest, I would have thought. They told me a month ago the ground floor room wasn't available due to renovation. I said that's okay, 1st floor is fine. I phoned back to check, it was still okay a couple of weeks ago and it was okay. Well, they've messed up then, haven't they? They oof. This is why people don't mess me around, you see. I very rarely have this kind of problem. Because if they'd called me up and said, well, we're going to cancel your booking because the only room available is on the 3rd, I'd be like, nope, you're not coming off the phone until you sort this out because you told me you had a 1st floor room available. So make it available. God damn it. I'm a horrible customer, I am. I stand my ground. I'm never nasty to anybody, but I stand my ground, and I almost always get what I want or what I've been promised. I don't ask for more than I've been promised, but I nearly always get what I've been promised. And if I'd been promised a few weeks ago a first floor room, I would damn well have a first floor room. Because even if that first floor room is booked by somebody else, well, okay, so find somebody on the first floor that doesn't need to be on the first floor and doesn't care if they're on the first floor. And move them. That would be my answer. You know, find somebody who doesn't need to be on the first floor and say, I'm terribly sorry. I hope you don't mind. We've got a lady who has disability issues. The ground floor rooms are not available because of renovation. So we're going to have to move you to the third floor because she needs to be on the first floor. At Christmas, most people would go, oh, that's okay. I don't mind. I wouldn't care. I struggle to get up and downstairs, and I wouldn't care if they said, well, we've got a lady who uses a wheelchair and needs to be on at least the first floor. She got an email this afternoon saying they'd cancelled the booking. She spoke to the manager this afternoon and he said there are plenty of other hotels. Oh my God. TripAdvisor, honey. TripAdvisor. Oh my God. This is how this particular company treats disabled customers. TripAdvisor. Start your review with, I would give this 0 stars if I could.
No, put mobility impaired seniors not welcome here.
Oh, even better. See, Andrea's a complainer as well, but she's an official complainer. It's like her job. Yes. Title of review, mobility impaired seniors not welcome here. And then write exactly what they said and put in the extra that, you know, we've had this room booked since November and my mum is 90 and in a wheelchair and now we have to find another disabled room in London. One time you didn't book through booking.com, you got screwed. Well, yeah, always go through an agency because booking.com will take responsibility. If the hotel said that to you through booking.com, all you've got to do is ring booking.com and say, this is what your hotel said to me, and booking.com will find you another room like that. In fact, booking.com would probably have had you back in that hotel by now. I can't believe they cancelled that room. Yeah, I know, that's disgusting. I mean, I understand that if they say, well, the only room available is third floor, it's not safe if the lift breaks down, your mum won't be able to get out, etc. Absolutely. But there's no reason why somebody on the first floor couldn't be moved. There's got to be somebody on the first floor who could be moved to the third floor and wouldn't give a damn. Anyway, let's draw reindeer. Oh, I'm annoyed now. Risha got mad about customer service about her shopping. Yeah, I would too. Do you have 24-hour shopping in the Netherlands? No. See, I'm going to do my shopping tonight at like 3 a.m. I'm going to have an early night and then wake up at 3 and go and do my shopping because 3 o'clock on the Thursday before Christmas, before everybody else gets paid tomorrow, that is the ideal time to go Christmas shopping because all there will be to deal with is an awful lot of people stacking shelves. Right. Let's get on with the floof. So the floof, all we want to do is indicate where the floof is and what direction it's going in. That's all we're concerned with. So this hair goes sideways. So don't try and do it too evenly. I struggle with that, as you can see. I'm terrible for being able to do equal marks like this all the way across the page. I find it very difficult to be random, but you know, try. Then it starts coming angled down here. Maybe try doing 1 and then 2 and then 1. That kind of helps. And then this starts going back that way again. So maybe do 3 and 1 and 1, 2 and 1, 2, 3 and 1 and 1. That seems to help actually. It looks better than this anyway. Do it like that. Stay in 2 separate hotels. Can't you call the other hotel and see if they can take you for the whole time and tell them what's happened? Because especially if you're booking a hotel, oh, is it a chain or just a hotel on its own? If it's a chain, I'd be calling up customer service head office and saying, we've just got bumped from the first floor. Why can't we swap with somebody else? And to be told, well, there's plenty of other hotels, that's just disgusting. There are plenty of hotels, but not on New Year's Eve in bloody London. Although, you know, I think you're crazy for going to London on New Year's Eve anyway, but that's me. Okay, floof, more floof. His floof, there is something going on with his buckle up here, but I can't tell what it is. So I'm going to draw a bit of buckle coming out like that. There. And then this bit's all going to be floofy. So slightly longer on his floof up here. And literally just going to do bits of floof coming out like that. His bum, you can't really see his bum. It's kind of just in the background there. This bit, again, this comes up over the bridle. So he's got long bits and short bits. So I'm going to do what I did with that just now and just do long bits and short bits like that. This all comes behind the bridle, and then this is all quite short hair, so I'm going to do it teddy bear style. Oh, that's a bit of leg there. That comes down there. His knee is there. And then his leg comes up and around there. His knee goes under his floof there. So that's floof again. But this is long floof now. This is like Santa's beard kind of floof. So I'm going to do like long strokey bits there. And same here. This is, again, long, wiggly, strokey bits. Just to indicate that that's a big floofy area. You know, he's got floof coming out over his scruff there, like that. Again, we're going to do the detail. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose. We're going to do the detail in colour. So his knee is hard, so we can do that as a straight line. I'm just going to tidy up this line again here. I'm not bothered about these lines, it's just that they don't match the rest of the lines because I changed pens. So don't feel that you have to do this, it's just consistency, like I said before. Okay, so here he's got his leg comes down, but he's got snow here. So we'll do kind of a not straight line for that. And then he's got snow coming up here as well. So a little bit of a not straight line there. I don't know what on earth is going on with his hooves there, so I'm not even going to attempt to draw any of that bit. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. And I'm going to put floof here. And in order to cover up that bit and fill in this bit here, I'm going to put some more floof, like beard floof, coming down on this side and a bit under here, a bit under his chin there, like that. Now his nose is fluffy. So his nose, I'm going to do kind of like squiggly fluff lines. How do I explain it? Just do that with your hand. It's hard to explain, but can you see what I'm doing? And we don't need to do the whole circle because that's going to be coloured. So just enough to indicate where his circle is. And then his nostril is in here. But again, it's a very indistinct line. So I'm just going to do it like that, and we'll deal with it in colour in a minute. His nose is quite soft and fluffy and smooth. But he's got a little bit here where it bounces up above that bridle because it's pushing his soft fur down, and then it goes back up there like that. And just here you can see his eye on the other side. I'm going to pop that in just because we'll do that in dark later. His eyebrow, again, we don't have to do the whole eyebrow, just enough to indicate where the eyebrow is going to be. We can paint the eyebrow in colour. And that eye, so his eye is smooth at the bottom and comes up. It's kind of smooth here, but then it's got fluffy bits, so it's indistinct here. So, and then it's got a bit that comes down like that where his tear duct is. And you can just see a little sliver of white in his eye there. He's actually got lovely big brown eyes. But that's what you can see of his eye, is that sliver of white. He's looking okay. I like it. His leg's a bit off here, but he's got a bit more floof that comes down here. Put that in. His leg is quite off there, isn't it? It needs to be a bit more kind of that shape. But it's going to be dark painted in anyway. And I think, just do one more quick check, but I think that is pretty much all we need. If you see any gaps, just squiggle to fill them in. A little bit of squiggling there to give his fur a little bit of a floof. I think we've got everything we need. We can always add extra pen. I think that's enough. Not for an ink drawing. For an ink drawing, that's a sketch. But for something we're going to colour in with watercolour, that's actually more than enough detail. That's too much detail, actually, for what we really need. But I struggle with holding the detail back.
Okay, instead of knees, my reindeer has two baby hedgehogs sitting up against his chest.
Oh, cute.
No, they were supposed to be knees, but they look like hedgehogs.
Doesn't matter. Give them Santa hats and be done with it. Cody's been working on giving herself antlers by the look of it.
These are actually from the Dollar Tree.
Oh, cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's a photograph. And then since you all are in the reindeer mood, I got in the reindeer mood. And
excellent. That's what inspiration is all about. Okay. I need a cup of coffee and I need to let this dry. So let's take a break for a second while I make a coffee and let the dogs out. because this needs to dry before I erase any of the pencil. Poppers, who needs to pee? Come on, you lazy gits. Come and pee. Good girl. Come on, Scoob. You too. Let's go pee. Scooby, come on. Holy heck, it's cold out there. Whoa. It's bitter. baby. Hey, Miss Maddie, how you doing? Hi. Are you freezy? Are you freezy because you went outside? Oh, baby. The heating's on. Sit in your bed. The warm is on. You can sit on your bed and get toasty. Yeah? You want to sit on your bed and get toasty? Hi, sweet pea. Oh, you're such a good girl, aren't you? Yes, you are. Such a good girl. Oh, cold ears she's got. She's got cold ears. Good girl. Oh, Rachel, I would so be complaining. I can't believe they've done that. It's not like you made the booking last week and they've now discovered they're overbooked. You know, you'd say, well, that's what I get for booking at the last minute, wouldn't you? So I'm erasing my pencil lines now. This is why I said, don't get too into the pencil lines, because I'm going to erase them all. I did say that before we started, so if you've got all gung-ho on your pencil lines, this is why I made Ashley start again. Well, I didn't make her. This is why I suggested to Ashley she should start again, because that's not the point of the exercise, to have a beautiful pencil rendition. It's to have a nice pen sketch. Whenever I remove pencil shavings from my sketches, I always use the sleeve of my jumper or something. Why is that? Well, no, I always do it if I'm doing watercolor. Why is that? Anyone? Andrea should know this one. When you're doing watercolor, if you start using your hand to remove stuff off the page, you transfer sweat and oil from your hand onto the page. Basic forensic science. And of course, if you get oil on a page that's going to have watercolor, your watercolor is not going to work properly. So I'm going to use my watercolors, and I'm just going to use a watercolor brush. I'm not going to get fancy with it or anything, because we're putting in detail. We're adding color to add detail. We're not watercoloring. Okay, so I'll leave that there for inspiration. I'm not going to go too dark with my watercolors either. I'm going to put my reindeer over there so I can use that bit of paper. You know what colour the reindeer is now. He's basically brown with light and dark bits and red. So that's what we're going to use, light and dark brown bits and red. Okay. Now, with the reindeer, I'm actually going to, I've missed a bit there, look. That should be some fur floof indicator. I'm actually going to start with darker bits. I like to work with the bits of colour and then leave the other bits whiter and kind of blend them out. That's how I work with it. So I'm going to start with his dark areas, which is his eye. It's a very nice dark brown. I'm going to use Payne's grey for all the bits that are black because I don't want them to be super black until I decide how dark I want to make him. And I'm probably going to use the same dark brown for his eye as for his muzzle and his antlers. But his antlers are two-toned. His antlers are dark up here and light up here. So I need to start with the lighter colour on the antlers first. So let's start with a nice kind of yellowy tan colour. Hang on, I'm going to get my... I forgot this one doesn't squirt out very well. Let me find my water spray. Water spray, I know you're here somewhere. Come on. Where art thou, water spray? You're in there somewhere. Where have you gone? Water spray. In here. There he is. Ugh. Okay. I'm going to get a nice light ochre kind of colour, so a pale browny kind of colour. I'm going to modify it with a little bit of this cool brown so that it goes a little bit more tan. Just knock back the orange colour a bit. I'm just going to see how that looks first. Not bad, that'll do. So I'm going to do this part of the antlers in that colour, and I'm going to allow it to blend out at the end. This one can be a lot lighter. I'm not squeezing my brush, I'm not adding anything, I'm not doing anything, I'm just letting the pen do the work, letting the brush do the work. Brush is spreading this colour for me, I'm not doing it myself. Blend out this edge. Still not spreading any, still not squeezing any water out or anything, just using what was on the brush already. Your water brush shouldn't need to be squeezed unless you're getting your water out onto your thing. That's what the valve is for. It's a valve controlled brush so that when you have pressure on the brush, the water comes through the valve. This little bit under here is slightly darker. So I can paint that in a little bit darker under there because it's at the back. So it's in shadow. And this bit is a little bit darker. So let's do that. And then we can blend the darker paint into it. His bridle is pretty much the same colour. So let's just add a bit of water to it to water it down and use the same colour on the bridle, but thinner. So his bridle pieces are here and here and here. Man-made fibre, so, well, it's not man-made fibre, it's leather, but you know what I mean, it's man-made object, so it's smooth. So try and keep your brush strokes smooth. Like that. He does have that big patch just above his eye. I'm going to use the same colour again, and I'm just going to do that little patch above his eye because I want his eyebrow to blend into that little patch. So he's got that lovely circular patch around his eye. Don't literally draw a circle, just little patch. And then we can feather his eyebrow into it and it will spread naturally with the water. His muzzle is white, but it does have some shading in it. So I'm just going to touch that around the edges, put it where his mouth is underneath, around his nostril, and then we can darken that up later. Because white fur is never white. It's usually dark underneath, actually. Do reindeer have dark skin like polar bears, do you think? Because that looks all very, like under there, his fur is white, but right under there, his skin, it looks very dark underneath. Do you think they have black skin like polar bears to keep them warm? I ask myself these kind of things.
Well, I've never seen a reindeer, but I know cows have different color hide. So it's possible.
Oh yeah, of course, because cows, the colour of the hide is the same as the colour of the markings, isn't it? Huh. It's possible, isn't it? I'm going to have to look that up now. So we've got a shadowed area here as well. I'm going to throw some colour in there and again blend it down a little bit because that will kind of blend down into his knee. This bit up at the back looks a little bit shaded, so again a little bit of shading colour in there. This floof here has a little bit of shade to it, so somebody's got their mic on, I'm getting feedback. So kind of doing the same strokes you did with the brush as you did with the pen to create that fur effect, see? So it's not a straight line. And then the whole of his nose is kind of a golden colour with dark bits. So I'm gonna do the whole of this bit here. Again, feather it out at the edges. And I'm going to do all of this bit here, right the way around to the side of his face here. Blend that into his muzzle. And down to the bottom where it's dark. Don't forget the hole in the middle of the ring. All of that bit is in shadow. I'm aware that it currently looks the same colour as bridle. Don't worry. We're going to add more colour into that. And then because this bit's in shadow as well, I'm going to add the gold in the brown into there as well. But we're going to go back over that with grey. It's just to give it kind of that blended look from brown to grey. So these bits are kind of off-white almost. And then you've got bits that are white with grey in. So just distinguishing between those two bits, really. The bits that are really light, like his nose and his scruff here, we can pretty much leave them alone. We'll just add some shadows into them. You know, you could do a bit of, if you need to clean your brush, you could do a little bit of yellow just to add an extra bit of colour. But we're going to do those with brown, with grey anyway. So now I want a cool brown. Cool meaning it's not like that's That's a warm brown. It's reddish. This is a cool brown. This is also a cool brown. This is a very dark cool brown. And I like to mix my colours so that they work together. So I'm going to mix that dark cool brown straight into that gold. That gives me a medium tone. So now I can go in and do all my medium bits. And I'm going to start with that muzzle because he's got a big patch of muzzle here. That is medium toned. Doesn't quite go all the way to where the yellow is, so feather it out. Come back to it and blend it out in a minute. Fill in the bit where it's going to be really dark and then bring it down. Dot it around. A little bit in areas where it's going to be shaded. Again, don't feel you have to fill in the whole area. Just dot it in. The paint's still wet, so it should blend nicely. Wipe your brush off and then go back in and just blend those colours out if you think that there's too much demarcation in some areas. I like this bit as it is. As it dries, you can see where the hard areas are, and you can just pat the edges with your brush. Just dot the edges with your brush and you'll soften those areas out. I'm going to add a bit more dark brown to it. And go up and do his antler, because this antler is quite dark. And I want it to look dark because I want it to look heavy. The darker you do something, the more solid it's going to look. Let's get that lovely loop in there. I'm going to do a little bit darker where two lines cross. Do the one at the back darker. Don't worry about colouring to the edges. We're going to blend it out. Just get the colour in there. Bit of dark in there, make that a bit darker. A little bit of dark underneath where it's shaded. Wipe your brush off and then come back in. Again, you shouldn't need to do anything with your water brush other than wipe it off. It should automatically be dropping water out for you. And all you want to do is blend out the bits that are very hard edges, like this. That's virtually a straight line. Blend it out. The antlers are bone growths, so they will be smooth but weathered. So you want that kind of rough look to them, that slight bit of texture. If you think you need a bit more paint, pop back in, get a little bit more dark, add it where you think you need it, blend it out. Okay. Up at the top here, I'm literally just going to blend that colour out to nothing. We don't know where the edges are, that's okay. If you end up with too much paint, blot it. There we go, that's blended out nicely now. Blend it out. Don't need to see where the edges are. Blot it. See how that gives the impression of his antlers going off way above his head. I'm going to use that same lovely dark brown for his eye. His eye is in there like that. Because we want that to dry before we put the grey around it. And his eyebrow is a bit more of that dark brown. I'm going to put it in a little bit more washy than I think I want it. I think I want it a bit more defined than this, but I want to get the placement first. So I'm starting with short strokes, just like you were penciling in your own eyebrow. Shows that it's short hair. It comes all the way back down around here. And yeah, that's not dark enough. So I'm going to add some more paint while it's still wet. Go back in, add a little bit more dark to it. So it goes patchy. That's what you want. That patchiness. And then we've got this dark section here on his nose. And it goes down here and under the bridle, like that. A little patch there. He's got a little patch down here where his mouth is. And he's probably got little bits of shadow in here. So let's just clean our brush in those areas. He's got some nice dark bits down around the bottom of his antlers here. And then they blend out down towards his eyebrow. And they disappear into white and grey up at the top. Clean your brush and blend out. Now this bit I don't want to get rid of. I want that nice arch there. That's the arch that shows where his circle is. But these bits need a little bit of finessing. Take note of which way the fur runs. So the fur on his nose, this is sticking out. Blend it out at the edges. Blot it. It might have been a little bit too much, but it's okay. So the fur on his nose goes up and down and then side to side. So we want that bit to be smooth, but we want this bit to come down the sides here. A little bit dappled. Dapple that a little bit more. Maybe add a little bit of that brown into his nostril there to mark where his nostril is, and a little bit to show where the shadow of his mouth is, because you can't really see his mouth, but it's there. And we know it's there, so we kind of ought to draw it. Otherwise he'll look like he doesn't have a mouth, and that'll look weird. If at any point you see your paper starting to pill, like that, you've got little tiny balls of paper coming up, stop working in that area. Step away. Go and work on something else. Talking to you, Andrea.
Sorry.
I said, if at any point you see little pills of paper coming up, walk away from that bit, let it dry. You see how we're getting lots of detail without really doing anything? Your Zoom app's not working. Oh no. It might need updating. It had an update the other day. Okay. Anywhere else we need to add some brown? Yes, his knees are that lovely dark brown, aren't they? And they're quite solid looking. They're not floofy, they're solid looking. So let's get some dark brown in here. Follow the line of his knee, and then in these straggly bits, just kind of straggle the colour upwards into his beard. We're going to do his beard with grey bits, but it just kind of helps blend it out, because we know that that white is coming down over his leg. So we'll be able to add shadows in there, and then it will look like his beard comes down over his leg. This one is quite hidden, and it doesn't have any fur covering it at all. So we can just paint this one in. He does have a little white patch, you know, on his, in the middle of his knee there. So I'll leave his little white patch there in his knee. And then this is blended up. And there's quite a bit of dark here, actually. He's got some dark here. So I'm going to bring that down, blend it in again. Thick and thin lines like you did with your pen earlier. Overlay the colour on what's already there. Clean your brush and then blend out. I'm just going to blend two sides of that bit and then leave that bit straight so it looks like it's a marking on his leg. How are we doing so far? Andrew's is looking good. Nice definition between the dark and light browns and the tan.
His knees look better with brown. They look less like hedgehogs.
Less like hedgehogs. I still think you should have just given him Santa hats and turned them into hedgehogs, to be honest. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups. How are you doing, Risha? Are you painting with this or did you wait for the painting? You need a book with better paper. Probably need less water as well. Let's have a look. Hang on. Let me. Oh, hang on. I've got the thing in the right place. 1 second. Stop sharing. Where are we doing? It looks all right from a distance. Look. Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. Little lighter with your paint. Little less paint, little, not more water, just a little less paint. So when you take your paint from your pan to your thing here, before you use it on your paper, add a little bit more water there first. Okay.
Okay.
That will help you blend it out a little bit better. So it will be easier to get this blending on the edges. Because you're struggling with the blending, that's because you've got too much colour there.
Okay.
But don't worry about it. You can fix it easily. If you just use a little lighter wash of what you've already got, you should be able to blend it out. What kind of paper are you working on? Is it sketch paper or?
I think it's sketch paper. I'm not sure. I got one of those rather cheap.
Oh, right. So it's actually cartridge paper then. Does it take pen really well, but not wet media?
Not really. Well, it takes pen reasonably well, yes.
Yeah. It's probably cartridge paper, what they call heavy drawing paper.
Okay.
It's not really designed for wet media. However, I'm using cartridge paper as well. And as long as you're not overly ambitious with your water, you shouldn't have too many problems. I did have a little patch here where it started to pill up. You'll see it. The little bits of paper will start turning into little balls of paper.
Yeah.
That happens, walk away from that area. Doesn't matter how it looks, just walk away from it. If necessary, dab it with a bit of cloth. Once it dries, those little balls, you can just wipe them away. See, they just come off like that. But you have to wait till it's dry. If you try and keep working that paper, you'll just roll up more and more bits of paper. Okay?
Okay.
So as soon as it starts pilling, leave it, walk away, do something else, wait till it's dry, and then you'll be able to just wipe off the pilling. And don't use too much water. You shouldn't need, are you using a regular brush or using a water brush?
Water brush.
Oh, and it's a good quality one too. So you shouldn't need to squeeze it at all. If you do need to squeeze it just to make the brush tip wet, squeeze it on your palette and use the water from the palette on the paper.
Okay.
But it's a good quality water brush. You shouldn't need to squeeze it at all. It should work on its own.
Okay.
So just trust that the brush can do it for you, and go in around the areas where it looks a little bit too solid and just pat it with the brush. And what you'll see, if I swap back to me again, I'll come to you in a second, Ashley. What you'll see, like here, see this bit here? That bit is quite a straight line there.
Mm-hmm.
So all I've got to do is right along the line, just tap it with my water brush, and the water brush should activate on its own, and you should be able to just spread out the colour like that. See?
Okay.
So if you do that on your edges, and then when you've got too much paint like that, I don't want it to keep painting, I just want to spread it out, wipe the brush, and just do it with water. You should be able to blend it out quite easily. Okay?
Okay.
I'm really happy with my reindeer. I think he looks good. Okay. Ashley, coming to you now. Have a look. Yep, good. Same thing, blend it out more. And I think you could have been a little bit more ambitious with your light colour, your very light ochre colour. You don't really have that difference in colour around his eye. So perhaps go back in and do a little bit more of that yellow ochre colour under his eye and use that to blend out his nose.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, lovely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you see what we mean about, or what I mean about using the watercolour to add the detail rather than trying to do it all with the pen first? So you just make the suggestions with the pen, and then you can add the detail in afterwards with the colour. So like we've done with the eyebrow. This eyebrow needs blending out a little bit. Now that it's dry, it looks a little bit too harsh. So I'm just going to tap it with the water brush until the paint activates and just blend it out a little bit. Just keep tapping the same area until it looks all right. Just soften the edges. There we go, that's better. I'm just going to soften a little patch in here as well, because I think it just will look a little bit better if it's got some bits that are hard and some bits that are a little softer. There we go. That's better. He looks a bit more friendly now, less fierce, more friendly. Friendly, not fierce. I'm going to use Payne's grey now. So if you don't have a grey, use your dark brown and just add the tiniest amount of black, or a very, very, very dark blue. But I use Payne's grey. Payne's grey is the easiest to use for shading when you want black, but you don't want black. Black will flatten everything out. You don't want to use black unless you absolutely have to. So again, I'm putting my colour in the palette, adding a bit of water. Try it over here first. Yep, that looks like a nice greyish blue. So while I've got lots of colour on my brush, I'm going to go straight in first off and do the dark bits, which are his collar. That's the darkest bit, and it's the most unnatural looking. So let's get most of the colour on there. Way more control over what's going on if you do it that way, because now you've got rid of all the excess colour And you can go in around his ear. Do these little areas on the edge. Don't worry about being precise. He's got floofy ears. He doesn't have straight lines around his ears. He has floof. Doesn't matter if you colour outside the line. And then there's this whole area of his eye that is dark, except for that little white bit in the middle. So I'm just going to fill all this in, dark. Need a bit more paint on mine, just to do the top bit. It will always dry lighter than it looks, so don't worry if it looks a little bit too dark. Where else is he very dark? He's got lots of very dark bits on this foot because that's in shadow. So we'll start by putting the shadow on his foot, or his knee, and then we'll bring the, again, we'll bring the grey up into his beard, and we'll continue that up into his beard because his beard has got lots of grey bits in it. It's mostly around the outside of his edge. Use the tip of your brush, keep it nice and thin, but just bring those grey bits in around the edge to give it depth. Do the same here. We can give a bit of depth to these bits here. He's mostly white there, but we can still put in some extra bits of fluff. He's got some bits around his collar here and some bits in the middle here that are a bit darker. So don't go crazy with it, but just little bits to indicate. It's like with urban sketching. You don't have to put every single brick in to show that it's a brick wall. The same way, you don't have to put every single bit of fluff in to show that he's a furry reindeer. We know that reindeers are furry. We don't need much more information than that. He's got some dark patches up on his head up here, so I'm going to pop those in. And I'm going to use that as the shadow around the bottom of his antlers there as well. And he's also got some little bits of grey on his nose here. And that will also blend in with the brown underneath and make that brown just a tiny bit darker. A little bit of shadow in this corner here. Whoops. Doesn't matter that it's gone over his bridle. If it bothers you, wipe your brush off. Just go in and spread it out a bit. Make it look like it's supposed to be like that. Ooh. When in doubt, blot. There we go. Now it looks like it's supposed to look like that. Payne's grey stains. Now I'm going back in with a bit more Payne's grey. A little bit darker this time. Layering over the top of what we've already got, so it'll come out quite dark. And I'm just going to pick out those very small bits that are very, very dark. So he's got these little bits around his eye that are very, very dark. You don't have to fill it all in. Just suggest it. Top of his ears. A little bit of fluff and dappling there. But the outer edge of his ear is quite dark. Again, don't be a slave to colouring it all in. There's no point in layering colours over each other if you're going to just colour the whole thing in twice. Unless you're changing the colour, that's pointless. And then his collar is very dark. So going in with a second colour of that. Blend it out where the fur is. And then keep it nice and smooth everywhere else. His fur comes up over his collar here, so blend the colour down. As soon as you blend it into each other, it looks like it's meant to be like that. So it looks like people's brain will automatically say, oh, that bit's a bride, that's part of his collar and that's part of his fluff. You don't need to do your work with your brain that their brain will do. I'm just cleaning off my brush now with doing little. Anyway, you've got these little specks, just go back in and do a couple of tiny little touches here and there so you get a variation of line. And down here, I think I'll do a couple just like that. He's cute. He's very, very, very cute. Okay. Put it down, let it dry. Step away. Step away, step away, step away, step away. 4 days to Christmas. 4 sleeps, is it? 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 5 sleeps. 5 sleeps to Santa. Not that I'm getting any presents this year. All my lot have gone away. I don't have. I have a birthday present to open. I'm not allowed to open it till my birthday, but I might open it on Christmas Day so that I can read it because it's a book. If I open it on my birthday, I won't get a chance to read it till like next Christmas. That's all right, isn't it, Rachel? You don't mind. There's a reason for it. By the way, if you haven't seen it yet, today's Christmas Chronicles journaling thing is about Rudolph's cousin who likes to do karaoke. So if you want to practice your reindeer skills, or even write a story about your reindeer, or have him singing, you can do that.
My reindeer has turned into a cow.
Excellent. Didn't something else turn into a cow yesterday as well? Look, have a look.
No, I think it's turning into the animal I know, one of the animals I know best.
I think everything you draw turns into a cow eventually, and I think that's because cows are cool. I think cows are your spirit animal, maybe.
No, rabbits.
He's all right. Nice shading. You've got the hang of the shading.
Oh,
do a little bit more with creating this kind of effect, this dappled effect. I'll show you in a minute what I mean. You've very how can I put it? Very. Well, it's keeping your style with the colour, definitely. You've definitely kept your style, but you're not putting any fur or anything. So.
Well, you can see his little hedgehog knees.
Yeah, they do look like hedgehogs.
I know.
You need to give them little noses and Santa hats. I'm sorry, just go for it.
I can do that.
Collage on little Santa hats if you have to.
I'm sure there's a very nice Christmas story about the Christmas hedgehogs.
Probably is.
Probably.
If there isn't, you should write it, Andrea. Oh, Risha's got to go. Okay, thanks, Risha. See you later. Okay, so the reason we've let that dry is I can hear myself. Somebody turn your Andrea. I can hear myself.
I'm sorry.
It's so weird. It's like when you have a a conversation on a mobile. It doesn't happen so much now, but you used to get conversations on mobiles and you'd hear yourself coming back and talking to yourself. It was really weird. So the next thing I'm going to do is add the colour. We've got all the neutrals. His eye needs fixing, but we'll do his eye last now. His eye's done. I just need to put in another bit of dark brown in the middle, but I want that black to be completely dry. So his harness is red, and it's like a vermilion red. It's this kind of red, but it's Christmas, so we're going to use Santa red, which is a much more pinky crimson red. I'm going to pop a little bit of the bright red in just to lighten it up a little bit so it's not too dark. But we're definitely going for more of a scarlet Christmas red than orangey red. Now the plastic is, or the leather of his harness is quite bright. So before I put it on my painting, I'm just going to check what this red is going to look like. That's actually quite good. I like that. So I'm going to start with the straight edge of the harness, where I can get the colour in. Ooh, dog hair. And where you've got two bits of harness that are the same colour but overlapping, paint them separately. So bring it round here. And then while it's still wet, I'm going to paint up into the fur. Not too much, just a little bit. You're doing the negative bits, not the fur. So you're doing the bits where the harness sticks through, like that. It looks a little bit too harsh at the moment, but don't worry, we can fix that later. I like to touch up my watercolours with a little bit of colour pencil, as you know, so we can do a little bit of white over the top of that and it will look lovely. Starting to run out of paint. Add some more. And then again, flick it upwards, little areas out of the main body, again, following the angle of the fur. So remember, we did the angles of the fur earlier, so this bit's coming across this way, like that. You'll see a little bit of a few flecks of red where it's coming down this way, but nothing too much. Pretty. I like it. That's just the right colour of red. Now I'm going to paint his buckles. And for these little straps, start on the outside of the strap and bring the colour into the middle. And again, we've got floof here, so use your red to create the floof, the negative bits of the floof. And you see how that bit of strap now looks different to this bit of strap because it was painted at a different time. So it makes it stand out. This will do the same thing now. Don't need to colour everything. Some of it can be left open to suggestion like that. Now I've done that red, I actually think the bridle will look better in red. I think if we do his bridle in red and his ropes in blue, in green, that will look much more Christmassy. He'll look much more like a Christmas reindeer. Obviously, if you're not drawing a reindeer at Christmas time, you may not want to do that, but that's okay. We are drawing a reindeer at Christmas time. Be careful not to let that bit get wet. Again, this bit is covered by floof, so smooth surface. With nice even strokes. Think of it like painting your nails, or the way you're supposed to paint your nails, where you don't go over and over and over it. You just do one side and then the other, and then fill in the gap. I think that looks really cute. I think that looks much better with the red. This is part of the bridle as well, so we'll do that bit. And then again, his floofy bits cover up the bridle, so I just suggest that there's a bit of bridle under there. Oh, that's much better. Yes, absolutely. Now we're swapping to an opposite colour now. So what happens if you mix red and green? What do you get if you mix red and green?
Brown.
Brown, yes. More specifically, mud.
Yep.
So we don't want mud. Mud is a flat colour. This is brown. This is brown tint. And this looks rich and beautiful. Flat brown is literally what mud looks like, and it's when you've got this icky colour that's just all sorts of colours mixed together. So if you're swapping from one colour on this to the opposite colour, the complementary colour, the one on the opposite side of the wheel, wash your brush before you start with the other colour. Hello, baby girl. Oh, baby boy, sorry. Yeah, wash your brush before you swap to the other colour, because you will have residual colour in it otherwise, and then you will end up with not as vibrant colour, even if you don't end up with mud. So I'm switching to a nice holly green. This is a nice holly green. Holly green is kind of a yellowy green. So we don't want the blue green. We want this nice emerald holly green, bright, bright green. Because it's Christmas. So I don't know if you can see the difference between that bluey green, that's kind of a more of a fir tree green, and this is holly green. Now the ropes are solid, so it's perfectly okay to do them quite dark. I'm going to start at the wrong end on this side, because I'm going to blend that out, so that it blends out to nothing. And I'm using, instead of just doing straight long strokes, I'm doing short strokes, because when the paint dries, that will give us the kind of a texture on the rope. Again, don't worry if you go outside the lines, it does not matter, rope is not solid. It has bits that fray off of it. Mind you, don't put your hand in wet paint when you're painting this side. I think the green looks, the blue looks nice, the blue and the orange looks nice, but the red and green looks more Christmassy. On this side, I'm just going to do a line down the middle of the thing. We'll come back to that in a second. So now that I've used up all the green on my brush, I can come back over here and reactivate this and blend it out a little bit. Wash my brush, because that's quite a strong colour. And then with a clean brush, just going to blend this out to nothing. If you just get this bit wet and then blend towards the colour, it'll run into itself automatically. So you get that nice blend. Same on this side. On either side of where the green is, I'm going to wet the paper. And then when I go over the green, it will blend itself and do the work for me. Maybe blend the colour down just a little bit more. Might even add a little touch more colour in there to blend down. There we go, that's better. And the last bit, well, actually not quite the last bit. We've missed a little bit here. We've got no shadow here under his chest. That needs to be this kind of colour, like his body. So I'm going to grab some of that yellowy brown, just very thin. Don't let it touch your green if your green is still wet. Just going to put a little bit of that colour into there. Just dab it in and then feather it out, just like we did with this. A couple of little bits of suggestion of fur. Go back over the same bit and do some other more bits if you want to. And then while it's still wet, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that grey. Just pop that in there as well, just to darken it up a little bit. Payne's grey is a great shadow colour because it mixes with anything. You can lay it over or under any other colour and it will just go with it. It will just work and it will turn it into shadows. And then it's all just a case of putting the texture in that you want. So a couple of these little bits of grey fur. Sorry if you can't see what I'm doing because my hand's in the way. And then I'm going to come back up round here. We didn't do any additional shading up here, so I'm just going to add a little bit of shading here. And then we haven't done this bit of his harness. Now that bit of his harness is a slightly different red. So I'm going to add a little bit of this red. It's kind of a purpley red. Mix that with what we've already got just to make kind of a darker rose red colour, just so it's a little bit different. same again, going with the areas that are straight. Nice broad even strokes, and then work up into those areas where his floof is covering it. You've got some bits where his floof is coming right down over it, so make the most of that. See? Don't worry about whether it's going out over the side or not. We can fill in bits. Just paint what looks right. A couple of little dots just to make it look like that comes down there, because it does go all round him. And then while we've got this dark red, we'll just do a little bit of shading under that strap there. And under that strap there. And on this strap here, where it's under his chin. You see the inside of the strap. Not much, just enough to give it, see, it just gives it enough look that it feels like it lifts up. You have to run. Excellent. Yeah, you need, Ashley definitely needs to learn more about the basics. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Okay. So have we missed anything? His ear could do with a little bit of, just a little bit of colour. I'm just going to pop some brown in. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to, just so it looks like it's not white. I love his eyebrow. There isn't a white patch there, but I'm going to leave it because it emphasizes that eyebrow, and I like that eyebrow. He's got a couple of little bits of scraggly fur down here. I'll just put those in while I've got that on my brush. I'm going to grab a little bit of grey, and I'm going to put a few little bits like this just up in here. Smaller though, because the hair on his head is shorter than the hair in his body. Just to put in that little area of dark that he's got there. Never got round to doing that area on his antler that was darker. So I'm going to go up into that now and do that bit there. Just put in a couple of dark bits. Again, just a couple of dark areas. Put them in randomly. And then we can go in and blend them out afterwards. Oops, sorry. Wipe off colour on your brush if you need to. And spread that just so that it knocks that antler further back. It's just a little bit more coloured. See how it's a little bit darker? It makes it look a little bit further back, which is what we need because it's on the other side of his head. And I kind of like this bit. I don't think we need to do too much to this bit. I'm just going to blend out where that harsh line is, because it actually looks like his antlers are slightly rugged and mottled, which they would be. They wouldn't be completely smooth. So, because wouldn't they be velvety at this time of year? Or is that springtime when their antlers velvet? Can't remember. Anyway, how are we doing? We're doing pretty well. So all we've got to do now, I think I just want a little bit of shadow in. It's not on the picture, but I want a bit of shadow in under his neck here, because that's going to be dark. Even though it doesn't show on the picture, it's going to be dark. That's better. So the difference between what you see and what you know is there. Sometimes you have to put a shadow in because you know it's there. And although it looks great on the photo, it doesn't look right on the picture. It just looks like you forgot to paint that bit. Okay. I think we're ready to put in. Oh, no, not quite. A little bit of gold. So I'm going to use that yellow ochre, but lots of colour. Hardly any water. Almost dry brush. Paint his bell. So that it really stands out as bright. Yellow ochre is a great substitute for gold. Look how bright that looks. It almost looks gold. The silver, I'm going to use the Payne's grey. And I'm not going to do all of it silver. I'm just going to do the inside edge of the rings and the underneath of the metal. Just a little bit here and there as you go around the circle. So it looks like it's bits of it is dark and bits of it is light, because why would bits of the metal be light and bits of the metal be dark? Not all one colour. Is anyone still here? Oh yeah, Andrea's still here. Hey, Cody's still watching. Come on, Andrea. Pressure's on.
I just need to let it dry because it's starting to pill up on me a little.
Yep. Good. Good girl. Why would bits of the metal be dark and bits of the metal be light, Andrea?
Well, shadow, I guess.
Close. Close.
Also where it wears off a bit.
Yeah, simpler.
Well, I mean, where it rubs a lot, won't it burnish and get shiny?
Now you're along the right lines. Metal has reflections. So bits of it will look light and bits of it will look dark because it's reflecting the things around it. It's obvious when you say it. You go, oh, yeah. But when you are painting it, it's tempting to go, oh, this is all silver, colour it all in. But look how much more realistic it looks if you... I can hear myself again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right. Look how much more realistic it looks if you have shiny bits and dappled bits and dark bits. It looks more like metal versus the very flat colour of the leather versus the smooth, soft colour of, this could be cloth almost. So it's all about doing different textures. I'm going to take a tiny bit of that golden brown, again, very bright colour, and I'm going to do the same with his bell. Now that the underneath is dry, you would see a bit of a shape. Maybe it's reflecting that rope. See how it looks like it's reflecting the rope now? It looks shiny now because it's got a reflection. The simplest touch can make so much difference. And now we're going to go in with that dark brown. Same again, very, very, very concentrated colour. The darkest brown you've got. And now that his eye is completely dry, we're going to just drop that dark, dark brown into his pupil. Like that. to create that white. There, isn't he pretty? Oh, he's gorgeous.
Well, yours is pretty.
Yours is like Krampus, Rudolph.
It's like a Holstein Rudolph.
Holstein, yeah. If your reindeer is the karaoke singing cousin, he sings death metal. He's cool though. I like your colours. You've got that blending out much better now. You've managed to find a midpoint between your style and using the watercolour to blend it out. That's good. That's what it's about, especially for more advanced drawers and painters like you. That's what it's about now, using the techniques to advance your own style. He's cool. I like him.
I'm going to go in and give him another coat when everything's dried. I think that'll perk him up a bit. Yeah, well, you do go for the more illustrative. I like the washed out watercolor look. You like the very illustrative style. So that's okay. Do what you think. I'm going to go in with a little bit of cerulean blue. Very watered down because cerulean blue is like super bright. I'm actually going to paint it on my page over here and then pick it back up again. And I'm going to use that just to add in just little bits of shadow on the snow. Just makes him look like he's actually sitting on the ground. Same with the ropes. Give it a little bit of shadow where it's going down and touching the ground. Blend it out as it lifts off. And then just kind of use up your paint, do a couple of bits of squiggle. Light blue is always a good one to make snow look like snow. I'm very happy with him. I think we can call that done. And I think we have successfully recreated this kind of style. It took a little bit longer than I expected. It took 3 hours, but half of that time was teaching how to get the sketch done. So obviously when we're not teaching, you can do it in half that time. Even as a beginner, you should be able to do something like this in about 1.5 hours, 2 hours, which means you can sketch it once, then you can ink it on a separate occasion, and then you can colour it on another occasion. So you can break it up into half-hour, 3/4 hour chunks. I really want to try it again with folding the paper, because that's excellent. That would really help me get where the guide, where the grid is, folding the paper up. And then I think that would really help. I didn't have it printed out.
Yeah, it would help. And if you've got like a rectangular piece, the easiest thing to do is, if you know how to letter fold it. Not everybody knows how to do a 3-way letter fold, but if you know how to do it, do 3 and then do it 3 that way as well. And if you don't, do the 2 folds across and that way, and then fold that bit in half again. So fold that bit down and fold that bit down so that you get an 8 grid rather than a 4. Then you're working with 2 squares. You see, you're working with 2 squares
instead of a rectangle. It's easier to judge space on a square, so you can work on this side of the square and then this. But if we'd drawn him as he was originally on the full size, he would be in this area here, because that area was blank. So just be aware of your composition. With that area being completely blank, I just chopped that area off and turned him into a square because it's easier for teaching.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But you're more advanced, so you should be able to do that and work it out for yourself, which is the best way to do it. But, you know, if you can letterfold, start doing your 9-way grid that we've done before. So if you are able to grab a piece of paper and put it into 3 and do the shuffle, most people who've worked in an office can do that. And then do it that way as well. And then you get your 9-way grid. Not so easy to do this way because it's got, should have unfolded it. But even if it's rough, you should be able to get a 9-way grid then. See? So you get your focal points. So that eye is on the focal point. That eye was right there on the original picture, which would help you with composition.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so
yep.
For the more advanced, I know Jane probably can use that tip, and Andrea, and you know, Rachel's quite advanced, although she needs some practice. She needs to catch up. You know if you're advanced enough to use that kind of technique. If you're still at the stage where drawing a straight line is a struggle, or gauging how big something is and trying to work out if it's halfway or not, or if you struggled with getting that nose right. So you had the wrong size nose, but you'd drawn the face the right shape. You just hadn't put in enough area. So you did know how big the nose was. You were just working with too small an area. You drew what you thought was there. Risha did as well. But if yours was more, you drew what you thought was there because you know that that is actually his nose. Risha drew her circle too small for the proportion of the head, which is a beginner's mistake. Once she drew the circle bigger, it perfectly matched what she'd drawn. So there's a difference. You can make the same mistake for 2 completely different reasons. And sometimes you just need somebody to point that out to you. You get too into the details, so does Ashley. And you have a tendency to draw what you think is there, not what is actually you can actually see. But other than that, I think your reindeer rocks. He's like the heavy metal version of mine. I love mine. I think he's lovely. I might actually take him out and frame him. He might come out of my sketchbook, this one. He's certainly going to get scanned. Right, I'm going to stop there because I've got to go do a YouTube yet. I haven't had dinner yet. What am I going to do for YouTube today? I don't even know.
I wanted to tell you something.
Oh, yeah, okay. What? My
uncle went to San Francisco and got me a copy of Personal Alchemy, where the incense recommendations.
Oh, Amber, what's the face?
Yes, from Amber Wolf.
Ah.
It is the most charming book. It's just sweet. I will tell you, you are right. There's not a single word in 400 pages about using a different incense every single day. You said to verify, you were right. All of look at how big this book is. I've read
a single thing in there that says this is how you work it out.
Exactly.
So that's my argument. Where has all that stuff come from if it's not in her book where it says it's in her book?
Exactly. I wrote a note to customer service at Llewellyn. I said, this is the most charming, lovely book, but it does not say to use different incense on different days.
Does it have the other bit in there? Because there was something else that was it colors or
Yeah, it had colors. And what she does is she says that what she has, I don't know if that's okay for everybody, but what she does is she's into chakras and color auras.
Oh,
but
right, okay.
But she links them to her personal experience in her body, not to the day of the week.
So the colors come from your chakras, which you can work out from her book, but your colors are going to be different to hers because they're personal.
Right.
This is why I questioned it, because just the name personal alchemy to me says that those colors and those incenses relate to her, not to, and what she's worked out, not to everybody. It's not universal.
And she absolutely says, oh, and she's into stones. She loves stones, but and she has 400 pages of how to work it out for yourself, but she lists 3 groups of incense: spice, woodsy, and air. She doesn't list out 150 different scents of incense anywhere in the book.
No, that's,
I mean,
that, yeah, that's misleading. That's misleading because if it says how to work it out, you know, from that book, yes, you could work out your colors for each day. So absolutely, that is from her book. She's works it out. You can do it for yourself. You can trust her colors, but where's she getting her colors from? Well, from that book, she's doing it for herself. So you're using her colors.
Well, she has a system. She has a system, and the system, she tells you what experiences you might have that would show you where you're headed. But as far as the incense system that she's credited with, she never lists something as specific as hyssop or gardenia. It would never have occurred to her. She has spice like cinnamon, clove, that sort of thing, and woodsy like pine and sage and that. But I can't imagine what she thought when suggestions as specific as certain flowers were credited to her book. She must have sat down and needed a drink.
Yeah. If she has worked it out, she hasn't worked it out in that book. In which case, either they should be crediting another book, if that's where it is, or they should just be saying, you know, she worked this out as a general thing, book coming soon or something. You know, I don't mind being told, yes, she worked this out as a general thing using her own system. Okay, fair enough. I'm prepared to trust her system and say she thinks hyssop is a good idea for today, so I'll go with it.
Yeah.
But when they randomly pull something out and say, oh, yeah, this comes from this book and it doesn't come from that book, that's not good. That's misleading.
Yeah.
Very misleading. And also the colours, you know, the colours are general, but they are what she's worked out for her personal alchemy. So they're not universal colours. And if she has another way of working it out, that she's somehow taken a chakra for the day and a number for the day and this for the day and this plus this equals, oh, you want a spice for that day, what's in season, then that should be part of the book. To me,
it should be part of the almanac, because I think
anybody can just walk into their herb cupboard and go, oh, what herb shall I use today?
Yeah.
And that's basically what that book is telling you. It's just giving you a random herb and colour to use. It's not giving you any reason why. And if there's no reason why, you've got no reason to follow it. So what's the point in having it in the first place?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Llewellyn tells me, because this is a really lovely book.
You seem to talk to them quite a lot, and you're a local person, so...
Yes, I could go to their doorstep and hammer on their door.
Oh, that'd be even better. Take a video camera with you. Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and it does a disservice to this book. It's a charming book.
It's a nice book.
It
but
is.
It's not got the information in it that people think is in it.
So anyway, I just
said like, oh, Amber did the colours for as a generalization. And if you want to do your own colours for your own days, here's her book on how to do it. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's the basics for everybody. You know, here's your horoscope. And for those who are interested in astrology, here's how you get your actual chart.
Yeah.
That's fine. Not a problem. But, you know, just listing random things. That's why I like that Green Witch grimoire so much. It's because she explains everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I got this information from. And in every case, if it's something that she made up herself, she says, I made this up myself. And the reason I've chosen this, and this is because this is earth magic. Or, you know, this is my preference. You can change it to whatever you like. This is interchangeable. This doesn't have to be. This is crucial. This isn't, you know. You can change it according to what you want. And I really like that about that book. That's why I like using that book.
Well, I give props.
Oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
I really give props to my sweet old uncle who lives in San Francisco. He went to used bookstores until he found this good condition copy. Oh. This book was published in 1999.
Oh, that's sweet.
It was.
So what I think I might do, since I'm already sat here and I've already got half a cup of coffee, what I might do is continue this page, but do it like this. Maybe add a couple of Christmas bits to it. Oh, I'm not on. Hang on. Cancel. Share. So just finish the page with a little bit more of this. Kind of do a mini tutorial. So we maybe do some holly or something in this style.
Or the birch trees.
Oh yeah, the birch trees. Yeah, they're just brown sticks though. They're a bit, unless you have them against a dark background, they're a bit naff.
Oh well.
Or I don't know. I kind of like him as he is though.
You could always scan him and then cut him out, print him out and cut him out and put him in your journal.
Oh, he won't fit in my journal, unfortunately, but I can scan him.
Yeah, if you scan him and then print him out, you could shrink him down, and then that way you can turn him into a sketch note.
Yes. Oh, he'll end up in my journal. I was just wondering if I should do something like this with him, but what I might do is like do a mini tutorial for like a piece of holly in this style and use this as a thing. So, well, this is what we've just done in class, but here's a little basic one for you for some holly. Yeah, why not? I'm already sat here. I might as well. So I'm going to let the dogs out. So I'll see you over on YouTube in a bit.
Have a good day, Ro.
Since I'm on a roll, I might as well carry on, right? Okay. See you all Saturday. Oh, it's the party on Saturday. I need to sort out times and things. Are you doing a thing on goals, Cody? Did you have a chance to look at that?
I wrote it out, but it's rough. I haven't finished it.
That's fine. Even if it's not ready for Saturday, it doesn't matter. You know, we'll just mention it in passing and say, look out for this when it goes up. It'll give them something to do over Christmas. Okay, thanks for joining me.
When everything finishes.
Oh, sorry, what?
Saturday is when you break up, isn't it? You have the party, then you break up for a couple of weeks.
Well, Saturday is the class breakup. Saturday is the class party for Christmas Chronicles and When Frogs Sing.
They do have a party.
Christmas Vlogmas doesn't finish until Christmas Eve, so there'll be kind of a secondary paint with me type thing on Christmas Eve, and then I'm off until January 7th. But When Frogs Sing 2019, there will be the odd post going up just as something to keep you busy for the first week, because I know a lot of people are off. So, you know, first week, catch the impetus of, oh, I want to keep a journal this year. So there'll be a few prompts to get you started. And I don't know if I will, but I may, and I'm not going to announce this on YouTube, I may do a YouTube on New Year's Eve, because I hate New Year's Eve. I don't want to be doing anything on New Year's Eve. So I might do a plan with me on New Year's Eve, setting up my new journal and planner as I normally would, for other people who don't like New Year's Eve either.
Oh, I'm pretty much safe. I'm taking the cat to the vets probably on Sunday. So apart from Vlogmas, probably in the evening, there's nothing on Sunday then.
No, apart from Vlogmas, nothing. And I'll probably do a journal with me for Vlogmas, so it's like an hour or so. You can catch up later. Don't worry about it.
Right. Okay. Cool.
It's all on the calendar, Rachel. Go and check.
I know.
Stop asking and go and look on the calendar.
I just like to annoy you. You'd miss it if I didn't ask.
No, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. It stresses me out, actually. I'm not kidding. It stresses me out having somebody going, when are we doing this? When are we doing that? It's like having your mother in the background. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, just shut up for 5 minutes. Stop it.
It's not like having my mother in the background.
No, your mother is way worse than you, but you're heading that way.
I know, and I'm half her age. It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Stopping the live stream now. Oh,
take care.
Bye.
Go. Bye, Dor.
Bye.